And joining me now is former NATO Supreme Allied Commander, Admiral James Stavridis, and former U.S. Ambassador to NATO, Daalder. Welcome both. Ambassador Daalder, I want to first play an important question that was asked by a Ukrainian lawmaker after my conversation with the Secretary General when I called on him.
Thank you very much for all you said in support of our country. But the most important from the ground, I can tell you, millions of Ukrainians are looking to Vilnius today with hope. We want to see the word invitation or to invite from NATO to Ukraine. That will boost morale of Ukrainians enormously. If this will not happen, that will be really demoralizing.
And I think
Thank you very much.
And the answer from the Secretary General, Jens Stoltenberg, was rather ambiguous, as you could tell from his conversation with me that we just played. And that really frustrated Zelensky. And that was when he tweeted his concerns about them not being invited after the war. And in fact, in the document, the communique that has since been issued, it's 22 pages, single-spaced, and in going through it, it's very clear that they have decided to equivocate on that. They still believe, as President Biden has said, Ambassador Daalder, that Ukraine has not met its requirements. Apart from it being the war and not wanting to get into, getting NATO involved against Russia in a hot war, they have not decided on the democracy and anti-corruption and the other things. Let me just read to you what they've said. We'll continue to support and review Ukraine's progress on interoperability, that's the military coordination, as well as additional democratic and security reforms that are required. NATO foreign ministers will regularly assess progress through the adapted annual national program. The alliance will support Ukraine in making these reforms on its path toward future membership. We will be in a position to extend an invitation to Ukraine to join the alliance when allies agree and the conditions are met. That's the frustration that Ukraine has. They want an invitation now, that they're ready. They're ready and waiting. The Baltic states agree with them, Lithuanians as well, as part of this Baltic community. But, Ambassador Daalder, that's dividing NATO.
Importantly, I think it does say that, and it starts off that paragraph that you mentioned, that Ukraine's place is in NATO. So the NATO leaders have agreed on that. The question is not whether, the question is when and how. And that is a complicated question that an invitation today would not solve. Everyone agrees, all 31 and hopefully soon 32 members, agree that that bringing Ukraine into NATO now, when there's a hot war going on in Ukraine, is not possible because it would bring NATO into a war that it has tried to stay out of from day one. And so there is an agreement that this would happen sometime after hostilities have ended or after the war has ended. The problem is if you say that specifically, we will invite Ukraine to join after the war has ended, or once conditions allow, or once hostilities have ended, you give the Russians an excuse not to end the war, not to end the hostility. And that's the dilemma that we have faced. This is not just a disagreement about words. This is a disagreement and a dilemma about what is happening on the ground. How and when can you bring a country into NATO? And this is how far the alliance, which is an alliance that works by consensus, is able to bring itself. I think we should look at this as a positive for Ukraine. Ukraine will be a member of NATO. Its place is in NATO. Now the question is working out the conditions on when and how that will happen, and not tie it to a condition that Russia has control over, which is the conduct of this war.
That's such an important point. Admiral Stavridis, as you saw, I spoke today to the Secretary General and the Secretary of State about the cluster munitions. Both of them made the point that this is a critical time and we just don't have enough conventional munitions, and both said that the industrial complex is not producing enough right now and that they have to fill the gap. But you've been one of those arguing that we're too little too late, we're always behind, Zelensky's asking for this or the other. The HIMARS, the F-16s, and by the time we decide that we're ready to produce them and deliver them, it's already late in terms of the battlefield.
This is an example of those challenges. And of course, you heard the Secretary General articulate that quite clearly. And it's always this way in war, in that we, the democracies, begin a little bit on the back foot, but we manage to get on the front foot. And frankly, if you look at the big picture here, we have been ultimately making the right decisions, and we sent them javelins and stingers, which were controversial at one point. Imagine that. Then it was the tanks. Then it was air defense systems. Now it's cluster munitions, a decision that I do support for the reasons the Secretary General outlined. I think it's a very close call, as the President himself said, but I think the right one. The next big one is F-16s. We've authorized training. The sooner we get to that, the better. And then just one other point to make militarily. When Ukraine comes in, and I agree completely with my good friend, the ambassador, my wingman for 4 years at NATO, when Ukraine comes in, they're going to be bringing immense military capability into the alliance, experience, a deeply blooded, highly motivated army. You put that alongside Finland and Sweden, the alliance comes out of this so much stronger, politically, militarily, and even economically, because our defense mechanisms will have been strengthened and tested in this war of logistics that we will win ultimately.
And Admiral, I want to also end with something that's been going on back home, because Senator Tommy Tuberville from Alabama has been blocking all military promotions because of the Pentagon's reproductive health policies, where they will pay for people to travel if they need reproductive health, including abortion services, if they're in a state that does not provide them. And there's a confirmation hearing today for the General C.Q. Brown to be the next Joint Chiefs Chairman. And right now, we don't even have a Senate-confirmed commandant for the Marine Corps. This is the first time since the 19th century. So it's pretty extraordinary that he is holding them all off. In terms of readiness, Secretary Austin made the point that families can't make decisions about whether to move their kids out of school and move on. And so it's morale that's at stake. Talk to us about that.
It's not just morale. You're absolutely right. It's war fighting efficiency, it's leadership, it's capability. These are big organizations, and they absolutely look up the chain of command to who is leading them. To not have a commandant of the Marine Corps in place for the first time in 112 years is staggering. It's beyond extraordinary. Frankly, it's outrageous. And it's a failure by the legislative branch, but particularly by Senator Tuberville. Why he is putting a hold on this in terms of the politics of the day is not related to the need for the combat capability, the leadership that all of these individuals bring. And I'll close with this. To hold back someone like C.Q. Brown, who is a forward thinker in every way, we need him in there behind Mark Milley. We need a new chief of naval operations. We need a commandant of the Marine Corps. Senator Tuberville, lift those holds.
Well, thank you for that. I really wanted your view on that, and glad to hear it loud and clear. Admiral James Stavridis, as always, and Ambassador Ivo Daalder. It's great to see you two together again. Thank you.